This is not financial advice, it's just economic observation about the economy. How could a nation become financially secure? I'm not talking about any individual here, I'm talking about the whole nation in general. How could gold help such a nation to be financially stable and able to allocate amounts of wealth for various types of endeavors within the population and the interests of the country? Gold as a solution for many problems would be that it would take away the fiat currency that is based on trust alone, and thus the devaluation of that currency and the coming with vulnerability of the purchasing power of a nation would vanish. And if something bad vanishes, if something weak vanishes, that means strength. So having gold reserves is usually something that a lot of nations do. So it's not outlandish at all. It is what still, even though gold is, a lot of countries have driven their way away from gold over time. But still, even if that's the case, even all if that's the case, still most countries have gold reserves and they bet on gold and they know its value and its usage. So most of the countries on earth have chambers where they stock gold. Big purchasers of gold, for example, is China, and most recently Turkey. Those are two countries which stacked up on gold because they saw the vulnerability, they saw problems with inflation, especially Turkey had a lot of problems with inflation, and so they stacked up gold to counter this inflation problem. So it's basically as simple as that. It gets rid of the vulnerability of their own currency, because if your currency starts to get less purchasing power, you are having a massive problem, because the only thing that really then saves you would be supposedly bonds or other foreign currencies which you see as treasure holding worthy. And most of the time a lot of foreign countries choose, for example, the dollar because they thought it's very stable, as the economic center of the world is the US and was the US. So that's what I did. That was what the status quo is. But if they see even vulnerability within the dollar, then that's of no avail for them. So gold is valuable irrespective of any devaluation of any currency outside. So because it holds its intrinsic value, it's always going to be valuable, and so you're always going to store wealth. And if a nation is storing wealth, they can use it in times of crisis, or they are always stable, even in economic collapses and giant stock market collapses and complete collapse of the economy. Gold is kind of stable. It might go down a little bit, but that's because trade in general is stopping worldwide. But it stabilizes extremely quick, and then it recovers to its former value, and then it even goes beyond it as people see that it is a valuable asset to possess. When I say people, I mean everything. People, governments, everybody, companies even. Yeah, and you could extend this idea even on a company level, and then you could go into specifics, but that's not the topic of the video. And again, this is not financial advice, it's just an economic observation. That's why I'm dealing with, especially here with the government. But yeah, this idea is not outlandish. What I'm presenting is pretty conservative, and it's still very widespread. But it lost a little bit of its urgency thought, because people think there's good alternatives. Well, I don't really think so. There is some kind of alternatives which are neither necessarily just gold or just fiat currency. There's other assets with which you could store value with, or allocate some of your wealth generating capacities or wealth stock. But those I will explain in later videos in more detail on how a country could actually structure wealth storage and wealth generation efficiently, surprisingly efficiently in the future. So but with that gold with these storages of gold, you could withstand crisis. And you want to combine all of this with always being debt free, and never going over a 5-year period, always having a net positive on your trading balance. You always want to have a positive trading balance as a country over the course of 5 years. You can do 2 years of bad years, or years where you have massive investments and you stretch a little bit, but you don't want to go beyond the 5 years unless, and there's an exception, you have immense amounts of wealth and stock. You have immense amounts of savings that cover all the deficits easily, and the deficits don't go beyond 50% of the nation's stored value or stored wealth they have as emergency fund or as whatever fund they have. Basically a wealth chamber of a country. So don't go beyond the trading. Don't get trading deficits over 5-year periods, especially if you don't have the wealth to back it up. Don't go into debt as well. Don't borrow yourself into debt as a country, as a nation. And don't forget, have gold as your basic backup of your currency. You can even go beyond that, but this is a little bit extra. It's a little bit futuristic. Even though it was actualized in the past, and it's not really that revolutionary because it's actually been practiced in the past. But you could also, but that's an extra, really make your gold basis fusion with your currency again, and really giving it its backup, making every citizen giving him accessibility to, or giving him access to, amounts of gold that is stored based on his currency within 1 or 2 days in gigantic wealth chambers of nations. But this is just an extra concept. But if you have this, you have the epitome of trust that can ever be reached when it comes to currency, because you're really backed up with physical intrinsic value holding stuff, which is gold. Could be silver as well, but gold is even better for that. And you could substitute the silver. You could substitute the gold asset with silver, so it covers all the amount of wealth the citizenship possesses. But if you could do that, if you could implement such a concept, that and go even further